So welcome back to CSC239, Scientific Computing Applications. What we want to do is take things across the finish line to show you how to finish building out your virtual machine for the solution in Module 1. And what we'd also like to do is show and share what's expected for the first assignment. So there will be an assignment about the textbook, then a 2-point assignment about validating your technology. And then after that, we'll walk through some of the steps to set up your virtual machine. So what you see here on screen is an image of a helpful link that was shared by ITS department. I'm going to send this to you in email, and I'd like you to share it with as many people as possible. There's some quick information about how to connect Androids and Chromebooks to our BUX Wi-Fi. The key is to manually configure the BUX Wi-Fi wireless profile, and then to follow the steps in this link. The important thing to remember is that where you see references to other domain names, you need to substitute uvi.edu, and where you see user ID, that's a reference to your student ID. Any questions about this information? All right, so moving right along, we'll go ahead and get into this. So I will be pulling this across to our Blackboard site right after class so that it reads an August date in 2023, but this is essentially the same information. So what I'd like to do is show and share what you'll be responsible for submitting over the weekend for our first assignment, our second assignment, and the solution. So once again, this will appear in the Blackboard site in Module 1 as soon as the class is over. I'm just referencing it here because it's the same assignment. So we've talked about the textbook in our last class. And are there any questions about the textbook that we shared with you in our last class? Does anybody? Okay, so for the first assignment, it's worth 1 point. It'll be due by 11:59 p.m. this Saturday, which would be the 26th of October. So if you look at the calendar, what you'll see is that 26th August, did I say October? I didn't mean October. Does everybody see the calendar on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, this is an easy thing to do. On Tuesday, we said you need to obtain a copy of the textbook by the end of this week. So what you're going to do is submit a legible screen image, print, screen, or capture as a plain artifact that you have rented or purchased a legitimate copy. Now you could simply capture the screen of the receipt, that shows the title of the book, okay? Or if you have the Kindle app, you can show the book in the Kindle app. And it doesn't need to be a preview copy, it needs to be an actual copy, right? A website that clearly shows a credible source in the address URL at the top, a current date in the lower right-hand corner, and your user profile. So you can't just show me a picture of the cover. The only thing that I'm going to do is bounce it back and say, no, we talked about this. You can grab a limited image of the cover anywhere and then say, yeah, see, I have it, and that's not going to do it. But if you're logged into a website or on the Kindle app, and it's obvious that it's the Kindle app or it's on a legitimate website, then it's going to have some profile information in the upper right-hand corner usually, and then there's going to be some view of the book, right? You can also show a PDF view of the book and then the online order with the date and identify. Do not show me a PDF of the book and just a PDF of the book. Okay, everybody can go to the dark little corner of the internet and download a free bootleg copy, but there are too many options where it doesn't cost, it costs less than what you would pay for a decent meal at a restaurant on a Friday night. Okay, so you're going to find out that I will also kick back that if I see an image of a PDF, but there's nothing about, yeah, I paid somebody for this, then it doesn't count, period. Or you could have a hard copy of the book because you got it from the bookstore, and there's a picture of the cover of your book as you hold it in your hand, right? So that's another thing. You can get a hard copy of this in the bookstore. Some of you have financial aid accounts that allow you to pay for the books with your financial aid and so on, you know, and that gets kind of crazy as far as, you know, showing what you did or how you did. Also, there's an online electronic textbook option offered through our bookstore. I don't know if you're aware of that. So you can often get a lot of textbooks that way. But if you get a hard copy from the bookstore, just take a picture and share it. Are there any questions about the first assignment? And once again, we will update this so it reads, do 11:59 p.m. That's the minute before midnight, Saturday, 26 August 2023. Okay, moving right along. Before the start of our next class. So our next class is on the 29th. On the 29th of August by 3 p.m., you should have taken care of 2 parts for 2 points in assignment 1.2. And this is just to log your host capacity. When we say host, we mean your personal technology. Your desktop, your PC, your gaming laptop. If what you have for personal technology is an iPad or something to that effect, you can go to the systems option and pull up about. I mean, legitimately, if that's your personal technology. So there are things you can do on a Mac or on portable technology. You should contact me if that's the case. But everyone here should probably have access to a PC or a laptop. Now, what happens if you don't? You can go to a computer lab on campus, or you can go to a system in the library. And you can do the same with this assignment. So once again, you can simply enter a computer lab on either of our 2 campuses, and there are several in several different locations. And you can perform the same steps here, okay? Now, there may be some things that you do in part 2 where you're supposed to run some utilities to optimize the technology. And if you're a computer lab and you're barred from the ability to do that, there may be a way to provide your login with temporary access. So what you can do is share the screen, show me, we can noodle with the screen, and then you'd be able to do it, and then we put it all back. That's what it comes down to. So let's talk about part 1. So what you're going to do is you're going to submit 2 artifacts that will indicate the CPU and memory capacity of your personal technology. That's this screen right here. You go to the taskbar, and then you go to performance. Now, if you don't see this view, you're going to hit more details, and then you'll click the performance tab. And then what you'll do is select the CPU option or the memory option. But I would prefer the CPU option. In fact, let's say that you do need to do the CPU option. What you want to see is the number of sockets and cores. The memory shows the amount of memory you have and the amount of memory consumed. So I know how much RAM is on there just by looking at the summary detail right here. So you should select the CPU option so I can see the number of cores. If you submit this view, I don't have the CPU and number of cores. So I'm going to I'm going to discount that and say, yeah, this doesn't really do it. So select CPU, capture this screen. Remember, to capture a screen, you're going to get the window in front of you, grab the title bar so that it's highlighted in the foreground, and then you can hold down the Alt key and hit print screen. And then at that point, you can open up a Word document and then simply paste. And there it is. And then you hit the Enter key, and now you're ready for the second screenshot. So these are artifacts. Any question about what we've just shared and shown? Moving right along. The total versus available disk space. Now, in order to show this, you need to open up File Explorer. Or on a Mac, you can show about this Mac and then go into the storage option. And for that matter, to show the amount of RAM and the kind of CPU, you can go into about this Mac and capture that disk. Do we have anybody that has a Mac? Anybody that has a Mac?
Yeah, I have a Mac.
Say again?
Yes, I have a Mac.
That was Deshaun?
Yes, yes.
Awesome. Okay. Deshaun, can I ask you a question? Is the processor on your Mac Intel based, or is it the new M chip? The new
It's Intel based. I got it just before they did change the M1s.
Okay, that's perfect. Yeah. If you have the M chip, there's another adaptation we can use, but that's pretty cool. And Deshaun, when we get to the point about optimizing the technology, if I don't mention Mac specifically and what you do to complete the rest of this, just call it out. Okay, remind me.
Okay, no
Thank
problem.
you. Okay, so total versus available disk space. You're going to open up File Explorer, so you can go to the search menu and type File Explorer, or you can go to the taskbar, which is where it's usually listed. Okay, but let's say that it's not there. You can type in File Explorer. Oh, helps if I use the right keys. File Explorer, and then select the app, right? If it's not on the taskbar. And what you want to do is select where it says this computer, or you click on the computer name. Now, mine doesn't show this computer. Have I explained that to you in this class? Did I mention?
I don't think so.
Okay, so in File Explorer, most people see this computer or my computer. And because I'm using multiple computing systems in this class, I like to name my computer. And all I gotta do, if it says my computer or this computer, you can do this on yours. You can right-click it, and you can go to rename. And what that does is it provides a name, a label for the computer in File Explorer. Now that doesn't change the name of your computer as a host on the network. That's different. But at least when you're in File Explorer, if you have multiple screens on multiple systems and you're noodling in the file system of a computer, you know which computer you're on, okay? And I will explain more about the name of the computer. So, well, I don't know. Let's go in here. Let's do that right now. So for your own edification, this is often helpful. If you go into Home under Windows Settings and you go to System, and then you scroll down, because you might have to scroll down, and then go to About. A lot of times when Windows is installed, Windows automatically creates a random name. It's a gibberish name. X93 something dash Windows, blah, 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 right? Very long cryptic name. And that's because if you have the same name on a network, more than one system with the same name on a network, it gets to be a problem. Now, for your purposes, if it's device name, right, you can change the name of your laptop. And that's a good idea because you should also change the default work group. Most of you do not work with a machine that belongs on an Active Directory or corporate and enterprise domain, right? So here at UVI, our classroom systems belong to the CAC domain or uvi.edu. The important thing to remember is that for most home users or home office users, you're not part of a corporate computing environment. There's a way to share files and printing, right? And the easy way to make that happen is to just include a default workgroup name for your system. And in Windows, that's called workgroup. The workgroup default name is literally workgroup. Now, that's really crazy. Because what it means is that any Windows machines that are on your Wi-Fi, they can find the other Windows machines and they can get into each other's Kool-Aid because they're members of the same work group, which is by default called work group. So if you click here under computer name and you see the domain name says work group, that's actually a work group name, you can change it. And if it says work group, and underneath here, it's in all caps work group, do yourself a favor and come up with a decent name that is sensible for you. And then if your computer name is something like a long cryptic blah, 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 random name, pick a theme, something popular for you, something you like. If it's an anime theme, if it's a Roku theme, I'm just saying, if it's a Fast and Furious theme, you know, you could have a work group named Fast and Furious, right? All caps, all one, no spaces, right? And then you could basically name your clients in the network different names. And that's good just for general purposes because it makes for a more stable system. Now, why am I sharing this with you in scientific computing applications? Hacking is a part of our daily dynamic now. And basically, it's better if you decide the names and the work groups and what they're called, and that it's not an obvious thing. I could scare you by showing you the Wi-Fi screens when I check the Wi-Fi network at an airport, at a local hotel where there's free Wi-Fi, at the marketplace or in Plaza East where Via and Liberty have free Wi-Fi, right? You'd be shocked at how crazy it is because people's names for their device is literally Susan iPhone, right? And if you know who Susan is and you're like, oh, I'd like to see what she's up to, right? Those are called provocative nuisances. Anytime you can do simple things to tune out and to lock down devices in a scientific computing environment, that's better for you and better for everyone. It's just a given that hacking is going on all the time. And so occasionally I'm going to share insights like this. And some of you, like Chimera, I'm guessing, Chimera, this isn't the first time you've heard this, right? Because you're in some of our cyber courses, yeah?
Right.
Right. And maybe Khalil is familiar with some of this, but Dishan and Anwar, we're kind of new in our courses with each other. I don't recall having had Anwar Thomas or Dishan, is it Heiliger? Heiliger, right? Heiliger. I don't remember having Mr. Heiliger in one of my courses. So what I want to do is show and share some consistent things with people as we teach, right? Even if the discipline is a little different. So this is one thing that you can do. Why do you care? Well, you could show this screenshot and it shows me what kind of processor you have, how much RAM, but it doesn't show how much disk space. It does show something really important. I want to make sure that your version of Windows is 22H2 if it's Windows 10. If it's Windows 11, it'll be 21H2, okay? So once again, we want to make sure that, and when we talk about optimizing the personal technology, you're going to run updates. And this is one thing you're going to want to explicitly share as another criteria for your submission for the second assignment. What version of Windows are you running? If you don't have an H2, it means you have an old version of Windows. And that's less stable and it's less secure. And for both reasons, you need to run updates, right? And we'll get into that in just a minute. Any questions before we get back to the assignment details? Okay, so once you show the total versus available disk space in File Explorer, all you're doing is clicking on the name of the computer. And if it's a recognizable name, great. If it just says my computer, that's fine. But even if there's a bunch of stuff in the upper pane, if you scroll down until it shows the C drive, you'll notice here it says so many gigs free of so many gigs total. That's what I need. I need you to highlight, hold your pointer over it, and capture the screen so that it shows this is how many gigs I'm using, this is how many gigs total. That's what we need to do for the second part of task 1 of the second assignment. Everybody good? Are we good? Any questions? All right. Optimizing the personal technology. So follow the steps shown to perform the steps shown. Follow the steps shown to perform the steps shown. I think I might change the wording on that when I pull it over to this year. In the link. Now, here is something that's really important to understand. When you watch this link, it's from a couple of years ago. So there may be references to the version of Windows, as I just showed you. So it may say, oh, if you're using Windows 10, it should be 20H2, something like that. In your case, after you finish updating, it's going to say 22H2 for Windows 10 and 21H2 for Windows 11. This YouTube video is going to, and we'll fix this so that it works outside. So we talk about how to optimize your personal technology, and essentially what it does is walk you through essentially, if you watch this video, what it's going to tell you to do is actually pretty straightforward. I'm going to show you right now. If I can just get this. So it's going to ask you to update your applications and Windows first. And when you go into Control Panel, if you don't see this arrangement on the screen, you might see something like this. When you open up Control Panel, how do we get to Control Panel? Well, you could click in the Start menu and type Control, right? And there it is, Control Panel. If it looks like this, use the category option for the pull down to show large icons. Once that's there, you want to go into Programs and Features, and you want to look at anything that looks out of place. And if you have major applications, like you have the professional version of Adobe Acrobat, or you have Microsoft Office, and you have different browsers, you basically want to update those apps, and then you do want to update Windows. Now, here's an important thing to understand. If you see something in your programs list, you don't know what it is, you should remove it. And don't waste time removing it. If you don't know what the heck it is on your screen, it's probably going to be something that slows you down or bites you later on. And this is not uncommon, but you should be able to rotate down this list of programs and see everything, and nothing should surprise you, right? Now, the other thing I would tell you is that if you have in that list an antivirus program, a free trial of an antivirus program, and McAfee is one of the most, unless you took out a wallet 90 days after you bought your system, purchased the professional version, and paid money to continue using that trial version, uninstall it, please. Because what will happen is that we'll have students that can't submit this basic assignment, and they'll say, oh gosh, it's so slow, it's taking forever. Well, that's because Windows has antivirus malware stuff that tries to run, and if the trial version is in there, a lot of times they bang heads. And that's not a good thing, right? They will bang heads. So it's good to have just Windows Defender running in Windows, unless you pay for a professional version. Now, in Control Panel, one thing that you want to do in your programs and features, if you're uninstalling McAfee, it'll be listed around here. And then there's a second McAfee product that has to do with Web Advisor by McAfee. Uninstall that also, right? And essentially, you should be able to find in the Start menu the programs, and there should be an option in Help or in the File menu to update that software. So you want to update your applications, your main applications, and then you want to update your Windows. And then after that, inside Control Panel, once all of that is done, what you should do is reboot your system, go into Control Panel, right? And there's an option called Administrative Tools. And inside Administrative Tools, you will find Disk Cleanup and Defrag. You're going to do Disk Cleanup first, and then do Defrag. If you've never done this before, it takes a while, so it's a good thing to kick off overnight. One important consideration, and this is really, really important. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to do this. Okay, so this is where I want to look at you and explain how critical this is. Every year we have students who are part of this class, and they have laptops, and there is power save functions on the laptop. And you have to go into the laptop and disable the power save functions or set different settings for them. Because if you don't, now that's in the video. So I address this and talk about this in the video. But what you want to do is make sure that screensavers don't kick in. You want to make sure that disks aren't turned off or displays aren't turned off. You don't want the computer shutting down because you run disk cleanup, and while disk cleanup is running, half an hour later, a power save feature hits because it's a laptop. You don't want to run this when your laptop is not plugged in using the power adapter. If you try to run the last two steps of this assignment on a laptop without being connected to power, or if you're multitasking, right? Or if you have power save settings in the mix, it's never going to finish. It's never really going to work, and you're not going to gain the advantage of the optimization. So those are finer points, but it's good to check the video. You can kind of fast forward or slow down that video, because we've pretty much addressed everything you need to do for the optimizing your personal technology. There are 4 separate artifacts that you need to turn in for part two of the second assignment. So you're going to show CPU and memory capacity, and actually that's already been done. We've already talked about that. Total versus available disk space. That's already been done. We've already talked about that. Recent updates completed. Okay, we've talked about application updates. And so how do you update a browser? Or how do you update Windows Office. If you open an Office application, all you have to do is get into a regular document. And if you go to the File menu and go to Account, right here, you can see there's an update option.
You're not sharing the screen.
Thank you for reminding me. All right, there we go. How's that?
Good.
Is that better?
Yes, yes.
Okay, cool. So here's what I did. I opened up any Word document. I went to the File menu, and then I went to Account. And then here it says Update Options. You want to say Update Now, right? So if you've recently installed Office 365 on your laptop using the Office 365 Campus portal, then you probably don't have to worry about it, right? But what you'll get is a pop-up screen that says, hey, it's already been taken care of. For a web browser, if you have a web browser and you're open on the web browser, let's try this one here. Let's open a new tab. If you go to the ellipse and then you come down to Help and Feedback and then About. This works for it works for Firefox, it works for Edge, it works for Chrome. You go to Help and Feedback and then About Microsoft Edge. It'll open up a screen and it'll tell you whether or not it's up to date. Okay. So what you want to share is an artifact that you've updated your browser or updated one of your apps. That's all that's required for this part of it, right? So let's find where we were here. There. Recent updates complete, right? Now, you also want to include the screen that shows what version of Windows you're running or Windows Update. So one application update and the operating system update. And it could be as simple as, okay, I'm going to go to Update. And I check for updates. So you can post credit by showing this screen where it says, hey, you don't have any more updates. Now, one word of caution about this, a lot of times, if you run updates and then you do it again and it says you don't have any more, sometimes after you reboot your system, there are more updates, right? You can capture this screen showing that updates are running, and that's good too. So just show me that you're updating the apps, show me that you're updating the system, 2 screenshots, and you're good on that point for this part of the assignment. And then this last one, disk cleanup and defrag complete. Both of these, now the disk cleanup will just plain close after the cleanup is complete. So that's a harder one to catch. When you fire off disk cleanup inside the control panel in here, this is kind of a nuisance issue. People are like, well, I keep trying to capture the disk cleanup and it doesn't show. It's going to have a screen like this. Let's minimize everything. By the way, all right, so does everybody see this where it says Office is up to date? That's a great screen capture. That would be, okay, I'm updating my applications. Then you have a screen for the OS. Here in the cleanup option, what you want to do is scroll down and select every option except for delivery optimization files. That's the only one you want to leave unchecked. And then under more options, you want to click clean up. So if you hit delete, what that's going to do is get rid of all the old junk from the old updates from old versions. That's going to clean a lot out of your hard disk, right? So you're going to say, yeah, I want to delete it. And then you go back here. As soon as you hit OK, you're going to get a screen that's going to say, are you sure? And this makes people nervous. But you're doing this intentionally to get rid of the old junk. So you're going to say, yeah, delete files. And this is the screen grab you want to show, where it's close to being finished. Once it finishes, that screen will close and you won't be able to capture the screenshot. So I just a word, you know, it could be anywhere in the process where it's working on the update. And as long as I see while this is going, you don't have 10 different apps running on your taskbar, then you're okay. Put another way, when you do disk cleanup, there shouldn't be anything else open on your system. Again, disk cleanup can take hours long. So you start disk cleanup, and you have it on the screen, you capture a screenshot, you're not running any other apps, your power save features are turned off, and you go to sleep, and you wake up the next morning and it's done. This defrag works a lot quicker, especially if you have a solid state hard drive on your personal technology. If you go here and go to defrag, by the way, you might be wondering, what am I doing where I get all the screens to close very quickly? There's a skinny button. I call it the skinny button. Can everybody see what I'm doing here in the lower right corner? Yes?
Yes.
Right to the right of that, it's a very tiny little sliver right there. If you nail it with the tip of the, it closes, it minimizes, it doesn't close, but it minimizes all of the applications that are open. It's very handy. As you're running defrag, you're going to hit optimize, right? And again, you can capture a screen showing that it's running. What I don't want to see is a screen showing that optimizing the drives is running. And then when I look on the bottom, there's 10 apps open. So both the disk cleanup and the defrag, those are good things to like leave running. You come back to it in an hour, right? Now, disk cleanup should take a lot less time than defrag. This one actually takes a lot longer. This is the one that might take all night if you've never done it before. These steps will, if they're done properly, restore the speed and stability of your system dramatically. And if they don't, you should send me an email saying, hey, I went through all this crap and that was a lot of work for 2 points. And I will advise you on what to do next to make sure that your personal technology works like new. So there are some other measures you can take, and you need to be aware of those other measures so that you can get your system in a like new state. And that's one cool thing about the start of the course. If you do it right at the front, you have much less problems all through the semester because you have a stable system, it's a fast system, it operates smoothly, you can multitask more effectively. There's all sorts of benefits from investment. But I just want to be candid and honest with you. I will be able to tell by Labor Day if people just went through a couple of the motions to capture the artifacts, but they didn't really do it. Because if you have issues later on in the course and we're sharing a screen and you're slow and it's painful, it's because this didn't happen, right? So you submitted what you needed to get credit, but it'll tell on you, and it will tell on you all the rest of the semester. Okay. So obviously I'm kind of pushing the envelope here early in the course. I'm asking you to invest a little bit of faith and a little bit of time in taking the extra steps with this activity first before you get to the solution. Because what I show you next, if you do it properly, will happen so much faster, okay? So what we're gonna do is stop this. I've already done the whole process with this classroom tech. So even though ITS was in the mix. And what I'd like to do is just close this. Are there any questions before we show and share some specifics about the solution in the final minutes of the class? I'm going to close my Teams window. I'm going to close my File Explorer window. I'm going to close my okay, hold on. For the solution, This is the link that you'll see to download the virtual machine. And then all you're going to do is open up this course video, and between what we did in the later part of our first class on Tuesday and this part, you'll have a simple screen to show that you have a successful login. Now, how do you have a successful login? So you work through the download and you set up the virtual machine, and you get a login and a password when you buy the book. Let me say that again. When you buy or rent the book, it's in the appendix in the back of the book. It tells you how to log into this system. So I don't want to get a submission from people who set up the virtual machine because they downloaded it and then they got a bootleg copy of the book they didn't pay for off of PDFs off the dark web. And then half of the junk isn't in that PDF and they don't know where to find it. And the legitimate book copy has an appendix. You go there and it'll tell you how to log in to this machine, okay? And that's where you find the information. And no, I'm not going to do it here live and tell you about, you're not going to see the login and the password because it's kind of like think of it like an Easter egg hunt, okay? Any questions before we get into the virtual machine?
I have a question.
Yes.
If we're on Mac, what are we supposed to send for the defect part of the assignment?
So if you would send the equivalent information for that Mac and for the optimizing your personal technology, Macs automatically optimize everything for their users when an application is either installed or removed. So all you have to do is capture a screenshot that you are installing or removing an app. Now, you're familiar with the App Store, right?
Yes.
Aren't there free apps? Like there's free apps you can download, calculators or hashing tools, or a whole variety of things, right? You can find free apps in the App Store. If you simply go to the App Store and install the app and capture the screen while that new software is installing, I will check off the box and post your credit. Because that's one advantage of a Mac, is that they do some things for the users and you paid more for your Mac, and this is where you get the easy button. You don't have to do the other stuff that the Windows users do. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. You should smile. If I saw you on the screen right now, you should be smiling. You're like, okay, I wondered whether or not the extra money for that Mac was going to be worth it. Well, there's less legwork in keeping a Mac in good operating conditions. Now, you still want to do the system update. So for the Mac, when you're showing that you did updates of applications or updates of the operating system, when you go to About This Mac, you can check to see if it needs a system update. You should be on the latest version of the Mac OS. So please include that. That's something you can do that works just like Windows. Do you understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like going to on an iPhone or an iPad, you go to General, and then you can go to Software Updates, and then it says, oh, you have an iOS update, right? Okay. Okay. Let's just pause for a second and stretch, right? I just want 30 seconds or so to move around a little bit, and then what I'll do is finish what we started toward the end of our Tuesday session. I downloaded the virtual machine and I installed VirtualBox. And what I want to do is show you how to import that virtual machine and build it. Once again, if you go through the 1.2 assignment to optimize your personal technology, you're going to build the virtual machine so much faster, and that's where you're going to get your time back. it will tell on you the entire semester, If you don't take this, and I mean, things haven't gotten too busy in the semester yet. People don't have a lot of heavy assignments yet. So take a little time to care for your personal tech. Little TLC is good, okay? And it'll be well worth it. You'll see what I mean. So I'll go ahead and walk around and stretch a little bit. I'll be right back on screen in about 30 seconds. And then we'll show you how to build your virtual machine once you have it downloaded. Okay, we're back. You may recall at the end of our session on Tuesday, if I go into my control panel and I look at programs and features, what I should see now is Oracle VirtualBox 7.0 or 7.0.10. So in technical terms, when you're doing scientific computing applications or tech stuff with hardware and software, it's considered good form to say dot instead of period or decimal point, right? So this is 7.0.10, and that's kind of hard to read, but there it is. That's the version. If you want to see whether or not the extensions have been installed, all you have to do is try to install the extensions again, and it'll say those are already running. When you're building a virtual box, it is probably a good idea to run a virtual box as an administrator. That means you're going to select the icon, and then you're going to right-click it and run as administrator, and then say yes when the pop-up occurs. Okay? The screen that should appear. Now, things change from version to version, and a couple of years ago, you took the downloaded virtual machine and you imported it as an appliance. Then not long after that, they changed VirtualBox, and you didn't do that anymore. You just opened it, right? So I'm kind of excited to see what will happen this version. And full disclosure, every other year we've done this live in class, there's been a hiccup, like the network interface doesn't, it won't load, there's an error. Oh, and by the way, in the BIOS or firmware of your device, there's a setting to enable virtual machines, and you'll get an error if that isn't enabled. And maybe we'll see that here and we can talk about it. So under File, you'll notice it says Import Appliance, right? And what we've done is unpacked the zip file. I don't know if you remember this. We created a temp folder. Is everybody with me here? Yeah? Temp folder?
Yes.
And there was a zip file, and we double-clicked it, and we opened it, and we extracted it. And if your version in Windows is proper and the whole thing came across, when you look at the properties of this OVA file, it should read 10,410,870,272 bytes. Now we did a hash calculation using SHA-256 to check to make sure this was uncorrupted and there was no payload in it, right? So the download is clean and it's good and it's in the temp folder. The other thing I'm going to do too is I created two directories on my C drive, one called VHD and one called VM. It's a good idea to go into here and under File Preferences, you'll get a chance to designate the default machine folder. Now this is one subtle thing that is a huge, huge headache. Because if you leave the default, it's putting virtual machines inside your user profile, and half the time it's putting it inside documents. And if you have OneDrive active, and OneDrive is synchronized from your documents to the cloud, if you've synchronized your OneDrive to put stuff in the cloud, what's going to happen is that this is going to get real messy. So create a VM folder and a VHD folder, and then under the default, what you want to do is you want to say other, and then you want to select the C drive, and then, is this the VM? I think it says default machine folder. So it's going to put virtual machine stuff not in the cloud where the internet is really slow. The internet is very slow, and this is a very large file. It's 20 gigabytes. How long does it take 20 gigabytes to sync to OneDrive? We could take the 4-day holiday Labor Day weekend and never come back, and it would still be syncing. So every year I have students that go, it just won't work, and it's this setting, okay? And then where it says VRDP authentication library, you can use that, you can leave that the same, but make sure this says VM, right? And we'll talk about the VHD thing later. You're gonna say okay, and then over here again, we're gonna go to the file menu and import the appliance. Now I'm gonna navigate, any questions so far before we kick this off? So I did the optimizing your personal technology steps on this classroom computer. After ITS got finished setting it up. And it took a while to defrag and all that, right? It says source of the appliance, local file system. I'm going to leave that the same, but I'm going to click the folder option, and I will go into the C drive and select the temp drive, and here we go, it's PG book. So it should read C:// not // unless you're dealing with a Mac. Now you're going to do the same thing for a Mac. You're going to set up a temp folder on your desktop or on your hard drive, and then you're going to point to that temp folder just the same on a Mac. In your Mac, the VirtualBox may not offer an option to import. You may have to just open it. So Mac users might see something a little different, but you're going to say next. And so we have 6 minutes left in class. 6 minutes left in class. And if your personal technology is up to speed, yay! When we click OK, I should see a fully functional virtual machine in 90 seconds or less. Something like that, okay? I want you to notice it says machine base folder C:/VM, right? And here's a change I want you to make. It says include only NAT network address MAC addresses. I want you to hit the pull down, and I want you to say generate a new MAC address. That's an important change you must make when you import this virtual machine. Now, occasionally we have a student that has an older machine, and there's something about the network interface hardware that doesn't play nice with that. And the remedy is to just leave that setting for NAT as a default. So what am I saying? If you get an error and it doesn't work, try the import again and leave it on the default setting. But otherwise, 9 times out of 10, you'll get an error if you don't do this. Generate a new MAC address for all network adapters. Now if I scroll down, I can see all sorts of interesting stuff here, but they made this easy. It's going to create a virtual machine that runs version 16.04 of Ubuntu. Now, some of you may already have virtual machines that are built out of newer versions of Ubuntu, and it's okay if you set up an account in a login that matches the virtual machine for the class, and you just want to submit that instead, okay? If you're running any snags setting up the user and the login, let me know, but you click finish, And all right, so let's start the timer. It's 11 minutes after 4. We have 4 minutes left in class. This is the longest demo I've done in this class for this purpose. And that's not going to be the case for a lot of the stuff we do. But you see already we're at 6%, 7%, 10%. So let's see, 8%. I'm getting ahead of myself. It's 10%. I was hoping it's 10%. Show me 10%. All right, there's 10%. That was about 30 seconds. So if I extrapolate, that means there's nine intervals of progress that need to continue. So 9 times 20, 30 seconds. If we get to 4:15 and this isn't finished, you don't have to stay in class past 4:15. I promise we'd be done at 4:15. We wouldn't go past 4:15. But I will continue the recording, and we will see the conclusion of whether or not we can simply start the machine after we're done and log in to prove that it works, okay? So once again, right now we're at 20%. So in a little bit, we'll be 1/4 through the build of this virtual machine. Now, my classroom computer has a large terabyte hard drive, but it's a traditional terabyte hard drive that is not a solid state hard drive. If you have a solid state hard drive, you would literally be able to create this in 90 seconds or less. So the reason it's taking a couple of minutes longer is because I have a traditional hard disk that has spinning platters and read heads, and that's why it's taking so long. Your mileage will vary. So you will have, this is like a car. You can get better gas mileage, you can get better performance if your laptop has a solid state drive. Now, there is one thing I need to mention here, and this is really important, and this is probably something that I should have mentioned at the very beginning of the class. If you submit your available hard disk space and you do not have 20 gigabytes of free space, you should not build the virtual machine on your system. Let's repeat that again. If after your second assignment is completed and you've optimized your personal technology, when you submit your details, if you find that you have less than 20 gigs of space on your system, you're not going to have enough to accommodate that virtual machine when it imports as an appliance. It'll expand from 10 gigs to 20 more gigs, and then you can delete the 10 gig image file. Let me say that again. It'll expand to a 20 gig virtual machine, but then you can turn around and delete the 10 gig image file that you downloaded, or copy it to a thumb drive because you might want to rebuild it later in the season, right? And why am I telling you this? At least every year, one student doesn't finish the optimizing their personal technology. They don't have enough disk space left. They try to import the thing. They were pushing the limits with the 10 gig download, and now they have less than 20 gigs left. They start to import, it fills up the rest of their hard disk space, and what do you think happens to the computer? What do you think happens? It runs out of disk space, and then what does it do? It crashes. So I want to make sure everybody has heard that part. And actually, when I post this thing out there in Module 1, I'll put a link so that it says, hey, watch this piece first before you do the virtual machine. And I'll fast forward in that YouTube link so that you hit this part of our recorded session, right? So that everybody hears this first. You got to make sure that you have plenty of hard disk space on your personal technology. Now, what do you do if you don't have enough space on your personal technology? you send an email to me. And then we figure out the other way to provide a virtual machine for you. And we let your machine access another system with the virtual machine running. Any questions? All right, it's now 4:17. What I'd like to do is just, So if you had to drop off because we hit 4:15, I understand, but if you'd like to stick around for like one more minute to see what happens when I start this.
I sticking around because I have a question.
Okay.
About downloading the virtual box on a MacBook. Because I remember you saying if you have the M2 chip to consult with you.
Yes. Okay. What we'll do is go ahead and run this to see if it starts up just fine. But that should only take like 1 minute. And one of two things will happen. It'll either load and open, or we'll get an error. And then there will be a follow-on video about what to do if you get this error. Okay. So I'm going to start the machine, but I'm going to use it as a detachable start. That's important for reasons I'll explain next week. And what it's going to do is it's going to load the PGBook VM 2020 machine into a separate window, and soon you'll get the idea that there's another window open. As soon as that gets started, okay, so we get something in here that says, non-existent host networking interface, Wi-Fi airport. So what do we do to fix that? I told you that if you have a problem, you could try to import the appliance again. So what you do is change that setting so it's NAT, but you want to delete this first. You can remove this, including the disk, right? That's not going to delete your downloaded image. It's just going to wipe the virtual machine. Another option, though, is to go to settings. And if you go to settings, you can go into network, and you could change bridged adapter to NAT, and oftentimes that will clear that specific error. So I'm going to try to start it again and see if that error disappears. And in case it doesn't, again, we'll have a separate video. So here, under advanced, let's try NAT. Let's see what happens. It says invalid settings detected. Oh, so this is another thing that pops up. A lot of times your display needs to be tweaked, and it says use VMS VGA. So let's make this change as well. Instead of VBox VGA, I'm going to use VMS VGA, and I'm going to enable the 3D acceleration. Now the caution flag down here is gone. I have NAT instead of bridged. Those are two quick adjustments. Let's see if that clears the error. Those are the two most common points of failure for this. And if you resolve those two things, a lot of times it'll just start up. And we should know any second now. And if it throws a lung, 100%. 100%. Now I'm going to close this screen. Once this starts, you can right click and change the display so it fills your whole screen. But I'm getting a good feeling about this. I get a blinking cursor. The first time it runs, you're going to see all sorts of weirdness, and it'll actually talk about a lot of errors and such. And that's the virtual machine negotiating how it's supposed to work on your system. So it's not uncommon to see like an error failed to send to the log, right? And it gets stuck. And all you got to do is be patient. In worst cases, sometimes after you wait a minute, you click on that screen and you hit enter. And it'll give you this window, right? But again, I didn't really get a chance to hit enter or enter any characters or commands. All I did was click on the screen and wait. When you get to this point where you see Ubuntu, you're good. You can actually capture this screen and receive most of the credit for the solution, because as long as the login comes up, you get a final point when you log in with the username and password in the appendix of your textbook. okay? So we have a working virtual machine, and it doesn't take long to set it up or to get it running, just a few minutes, right? As long as your personal technology is in a good place. And if you think about it, it's a good idea to do that anyway, before you start a whole new semester. So that'll conclude the recording of our session. If you have questions or you'd like a walkthrough, there's your PG book, is the login name. And in the appendix, it gives you the password. So you show me this screen, you get 4 out of 5 points for the solution. If you put in the password and show me the next screen that comes up, you get full credit. We'll stop sharing and stop recording at this point, but we'll stay in session to assist with any additional questions for Linux users and Mac users.